The cottage stood alone, old stone nestled in the curve of the moor. Heather, purple and wild, stretched around it like the sea. Emily loved the cottage, loved the way the wind sang through the chimney, loved the silence of the moors, loved the stories the cottage walls whispered. But sometimes at night, Emily felt a chill, a cold spot in the air, a whisper of something else, something old. She told herself it was the wind, the creaking house, the loneliness of the moors. But deep down she knew, something was there. Emily wasn't afraid, not really. She was a practical girl, strong, independent, used to the solitude of her work.
I'm a writer. Words are my companions. Stories, my escape. The silence of the moors, my muse.
But the whispers were becoming harder to ignore. They came at night, soft, like the rustle of silk, or the turning of pages in an old book. Sometimes she felt a presence, a warmth, not unpleasant, like someone watching over her, protecting her. But who? Days turned into weeks. The whispers continued. Emily tried to ignore them, focus on her work, lose herself in her stories.
But it's no use. The presence grows stronger, more insistent.
She saw things out of the corner of her eye, shadows moving, flickers of light. One night she woke suddenly, heart pounding. A cold wind blew through the room. The fire in the hearth sputtered and died, leaving her in darkness.
I felt a chill run down my spine. I was not alone. I could feel it, watching me, waiting.
Emily sat up in bed, her breath caught in her throat. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced through her.
I listened. Silence, except for the beating of my own heart and a soft, almost inaudible hum coming from the far corner of the room.
She strained her eyes, trying to pierce the darkness.
And then I saw it. A faint glow, like moonlight on water, shifting, swirling.
Do not be afraid.
The voice was ancient, reassuring.
A storm was brewing. Narrator, days turned colder. The wind howled like a banshee across the moors. Rain lashed against the windows of the cottage.
Emily huddled by the fire. A book lay open in her lap, but her mind was elsewhere.
On the presence in the cottage, the guardian. I knew now it was real, not a figment of my imagination. It was there, watching over me, protecting me. But from what?
The storm raged outside, wind screaming, thunder rattling the windows. The fire in the hearth sputtered, threatening to go out. Emily added another log to the fire. The flames leaped, casting flickering shadows on the walls. She watched the dancing flames, lost in thought.
Suddenly a crash from downstairs, loud, shattering. The sound cut through the howling wind like a knife. Fear, cold and clammy, gripped me. Narrator, Emily froze, heart pounding. She grabbed the poker from beside the fireplace. Her hand trembled.
She crept towards the door. Another crash, closer this time, followed by a low growl, menacing.
My blood ran cold. This was no ordinary intruder.
Emily took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. She threw open the door and rushed into the hallway.
The smell of smoke hit me first. Thick, acrid, burning wood.
Flames roared at the bottom of the stairs, cutting off her escape, trapping her.
Panic welled up inside me. Help me, I screamed, my voice lost in the roar of the fire. The heat was intense. Smoke billowed, choking me. I coughed.
The flames reached out like grasping claws, licking at the ceiling, devouring everything in their path. Emily closed her eyes, defeated. A sudden blast of cold air, pushing her back from the inferno. S1 whirling around her.
Emily opened her eyes, blinked against the smoke.
The figure stood before her, tall and ethereal, bathed in an otherworldly light. Its eyes glowed with an inner fire, protecting her.
The guardian raised its hand.
And the flames parted, creating a path through the inferno, a way out.
Emily stared in disbelief.
Come, the guardian whispered.
Its voice calm, steady, reassuring.
Emily hesitated for a moment, then she took a step forward.
Into the fire.
Emily looked up at her savior, her heart filled with gratitude. The guardian caught her, gently lowering her to the ground, away from the burning cottage. Safe. Finally, they reached the relative coolness of the night air. Emily stumbled, coughing, gasping for breath. The guardian stayed by her side, a shield against the inferno. Its presence calmed her fear, gave her strength, and led her through the flames. The heat was intense, but the flames did not burn. They parted around her like water, guiding her towards the safety of the open doorway. Thank you, she whispered, her voice hoarse from the smoke.
The guardian smiled, a sad, wistful smile. You are safe now, it said. Its voice was like the whisper of the wind, ancient yet strangely comforting.
Emily nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. She looked back at the burning cottage, flames devouring her home, her possessions, her life. Yet she felt no sadness, only relief. She was alive thanks to the guardian, the spirit of the cottage, the protector, the one who had watched over her all this time. The fire burned itself out, leaving behind smoldering ruins. The first rays of dawn painted the sky with hues of pink and orange. A new day.
Emily stood on the moor, the guardian by her side. The air was crisp and cold, the smell of smoke lingered, but Emily felt strangely at peace.
She was not alone. She had the guardian. And she knew with a certainty that went beyond words that she would never be alone again.
The guardian had saved her life, and in doing so, had forged a bond between them. A bond of gratitude, of friendship, of love. Emily left the moors that day, but she carried the memory of the cottage and the guardian in her heart. A reminder of the night she almost died, and the extraordinary being that had saved her.
She knew that the guardian was still there, watching over the ruins of the cottage, waiting. One day, she would return. She would rebuild the cottage, and she would live there with the guardian by her side, protecting each other.
For she knew that the guardian was not just the spirit of the cottage. It was her guardian, her friend, and she would be there for it, always.